Pam, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. So today we're just taking up the savings plan for the MNC PPC. No, that's not true. But
No.
you're the analyst for all of these items, even though you're not usually the analyst for the Office of Ag and so forth.
So I'll explain. When we first set up the agenda, we had separated the items that would come before the Fed committee into all the non-MNC PPC agencies and departments being covered last Friday, and then MNC PPC to be covered today. But what we realized when we saw the savings plan was that the Fed committee could cover them all in one day. So I have organized the staff report for you. The analysts for each section will be available and will be discussing their own individual reviews.
Thank you. Okay. I see that
Put
in the
everything
memo.
into one packet.
You can see in the memo it's their individual staff recommendations.
Correct.
Okay, good. So a little background here. You know, the executive fought the county council on passing a constrained budget, continued to advocate until the bitter end that we could afford very generous raises. You know, poo-pooed the council calling for restraint and indicated that maybe revenues would be going up. Who knew? We knew. And the council acted with caution and restraint, and we did not approve very significant compensation increases. Compensation is somewhere between 70 and 90% of the budget in any given service area. So when you need to save money, you have to look to very direct services pretty soon when you're not touching compensation. And of course, we never want to go backwards on compensation. We never want to have to roll back promised compensation. That's something we don't want people to make less money from year to year like that. Those kinds of choices are really terrible. So we have to be very careful about how we budget our increases. And sure enough, right after we passed the budget, initially there was no indication that there was going to be a savings plan. Now we have a savings plan. Savings plan that we've received is, frankly, a fraction of what we're probably going to need to do. The initial request from OMB was for a 6% reduction in each department or agency. I have to comment on the fact that the only two items that the executive recommended an actual 6% cut for are in the Housing Opportunities Commission and the Park and Planning Commission. And we know there's a kind of history of conflict between the executive and these two agencies. And if I thought that these cuts were disproportionate or unfair, I'd fight them. But I think as you go through them, they're not unreasonable. I think probably the question is why other departments also aren't doing more. And that's probably a question we're going to have to answer. And the problem is, when you see the kinds of expenses that are being, rolled back, if you don't act quickly, those expenses will be expended. And then you don't have them to roll back. And so here in the Park and Planning Commission, for example, there's a pretty lengthy list of expenditure items that, without this savings plan, the Commission might have moved forward and actually expended that money. And then it wouldn't be there to save later in the year. And then when we wanted to find savings, we'd have to cut into programs that are even more problematic. So that is why it's important to act quickly and, meet the problem that you think you probably have rather than just a fraction of the problem. Having said that, we'll proceed through all of these. Generally, staff recommendations are in line with are supporting for the most part the requested savings, and so we'll go through them. But I just want to put a marker out there that it's notable that only HOC and Park and Planning have 6%, and if there is a second round, that's going to be a factor. We're gonna need to remember that they did offer up, and their cuts were accepted by the executive, and that's we have to take that into consideration if there are additional rounds of savings. Andrew, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, just very briefly, I'd echo the same point. I think there's a frustration here from many that I have heard over the last few days that there was a call for 6% cuts. The departments that the county executive oversees came in well under the 6% cuts that were deemed as necessary, and the two organizations that the county executive doesn't oversee have the 6% cuts. And so, there's a little bit of good for the goose, good for the gander situation here, and I think that we're going to have to take a look. I appreciate, I think it's important to note too. I mean, this isn't just about the county executive. I think we need to appreciate the fact that Housing Opportunity Commission and Park and Planning stepped up and did exactly what they were asked for, to sacrifice in a time of significant fiscal challenges. And I have found that to be the case in my short time on this committee and on the council, that when they have been asked to step up and provide some of the sacrifice needed to get through a fiscally challenging budget or a fiscally challenging time, they have. And hopefully they won't be penalized moving forward for the fact that they actually did what they were asked to do in a time when they were needed to do it.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so all right, why don't we ask, let's just get a quick frame here from Park and Planning, because they are the lion's share of all the savings. So I know the order is to go to Park and Planning, and we'll do that, but I want to just give the chair of the commission a chance to make some comments now at the outset.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think you are right on the mark. We feel that we have really bent over backwards to try to meet the 6% number. By our calculation, we're saving $8 million. The rest of Montgomery County government is saving $34 million. So that means our savings represent 24% of what Montgomery County government is offering up. And it's really not about fairness. I mean, we recognize that there's, different priorities at different times, and I'm not here to say that what we do is more or less or the same as any other particular agency, but I think that what the PHED committee members have been talking about is absolutely right. We feel that most of the savings that have been identified by the other agencies it's money that wasn't going to be spent because the coronavirus made some of those services not relevant or not even possible to offer. And we've had to dig in to personnel and expenditures that are going to have direct impact on our ability to maintain the park system. There's going to be playground equipment that's not maintained. There's going to be lawns that don't get mowed. There's going to be invasive species that we're going to really struggle to fight back because we're offering this money up. And we're not saying you shouldn't do it, but we certainly hope that everyone understands that we've taken a disproportionate hit up front, and we've done it at a time when it was unpleasant. But as Mr. Reamer pointed out, doing it now makes it easier to manage. And I certainly hope other agencies and departments aren't going to come forward when there's a new savings plan in the fall or at some other point this year and say, "Oh, sorry, we can't meet the new number because we don't have that much left to spend." The last thing I'd say about it is we just want to make it absolutely crystal clear. We have dug deep, and we cannot sustain additional cuts without RIFs or furloughs or some fundamental restructuring of personnel. This additional cuts will mean jobs and compensation are affected, and not in a trivial way. So if it comes to that, obviously we will work with you to figure out how to do that. But everybody needs to understand that we are at the end of the things that can be chopped off to just sort of muddle through. We're going to be looking at some extremely difficult and unpleasant choices that affect individuals' lives. We don't want to do that. We feel that offering this up now, early on in the fiscal year, is the right thing to do. But we would ask for your consideration if further cuts are necessary, to understand that we've offered these up early in a way that has inflicted some short-term pain, in the hopes that by doing the responsible thing, we can save people's jobs, we can keep people in one piece through the duration of this budget and public health crisis.
Thank you. Duly noted. When I saw the amount of money that you put forward and that the executive sent along, I have to say I gulped. But it's clear you did a very thorough job scouring for ways to save money and to make it work. And I appreciate that. And as you say, doing this now, if we didn't do this now and you went ahead and spent all that money, and then in October, we're saying, oh, who would have known? We have to do more cuts. Then you're going to be in a much more difficult situation. Whatever furlough you might have to do is going to be deeper, or whatever. So it's good that you're, the request from the executive for 6% was a good request. It basically matched the need for savings with not all of the projected revenue loss. There's yet to be any projected revenue loss for property taxes. Property taxes are going to be down relative to our expectation, I am quite sure. It's not exactly strong leadership here, but here's what we have from the executive, and I think your share of this is significant, and so thank you for working hard in good faith, and let's proceed. Thank you. Pam.
Okay. Well, hopefully everyone has a copy of the staff report, which does contain all of the recommendations for the budgets, pardon me, that you'll be reviewing today. The first department or agency that you'll covered is the Office of Agriculture. So if Mr. Smith is on the line, here we go. I will just let staff proceed.
Good morning, everybody. I'm also joined by our colleagues from the Office of Agriculture, Jeremy Chris, the director, and Mike Scheffel. And we're also joined by Jane Correa from OMB. The recommended reduction for the Office of Ag is on its operating side, not personnel. It's for the Maryland Ag Education Foundation program, which is also known as the Mobile Science Lab. Office of Ag offered this to the executive based on the understanding that MCPS would be probably not having in-person classes through most of the fall. The recommended reduction is $34,200, or about 50% of the year. Also, because again, they noted that they expected classes to either be different or not in person through December 31st of 2020. So council staff does agree or concur with the executive's recommended cut based on, again, the understanding even MCPS has released they will likely start remotely in the fall. And again, I'm joined by the Office of Ag staff if you have additional questions about this cut.
Thank you. Your summary, explains it. This is a mobile lab that goes to schools and is a place for education of kids about ag. It's highly unlikely that the school system is going to be able to accommodate that. Certainly in the fall. Frankly, I wonder if it'll even happen in the spring. We appreciate the savings. I think to Casey Anderson's point earlier, this is something we would not likely have expended ever. So it would have been in the fund balance, at the end of the year. It's an easy one to accept. Fortunately, no pain yet, but I would just advise, Director Chris, save your pennies. If there are contracts, if there are expenditures that you think are something you can hold on to. I'm very concerned that we're going to be back here in October, November, talking about more painful measures. So
let me just chime in if I can. First of all, of all the agencies and departments in county government, the one that I'm least concerned about being thrifty and making a lot out of a very small budget is the mighty lean Office of Agriculture, which we're looking at right now in its entirety. They have all. I appreciate the fact that you have directed your entire staff to disrupt the full operation of the Office of Agriculture in order to participate in this important conversation. But this is an office that has taken it on the chin for many, many years, has never really been built back up to where it was, and to what it was, and are making the most out of not a whole lot. So I do share your concern across Montgomery County government, where the 6% cuts did not happen, although they were talked about, although they were requested. They didn't happen. Only the independent agencies were really asked to make the full sacrifice. But the Office of Agriculture, I don't see as being the main issue here. And I think, and I hope that that the office is able to be spared, because the cuts have already been to the fat, and we'd be getting down to the bone. I think this makes sense. I'm disappointed. Councilmember Jawando in this committee. We previously have really pushed to add this funding in. It's critical when we talk about preserving the agricultural reserve, when we talk about the county's agricultural heritage. I don't know how we do that without educating most of our young people about what agriculture is, and to ensure that every person who goes through our public education system understands the value of what agriculture is, and what where the things that they enjoy are grown, and by whom and where. But obviously, this is a practical reality of the current circumstances that we're in. It's not a tough cut, but it's tough to see, because it reflects the fact that our young people aren't in school, that programs like this that are really important for our young people and for their enrichment aren't happening. And I will say, if to the point of this goes beyond December 2020 into 2021, we're going to be back for several more rounds of cuts, unfortunately, because that would mean that we have not gotten a handle on the public health emergency, and the economic challenges that would result from that would be really, really difficult. So I just wanted to note that. Appreciate the Office of Agriculture. I'm a huge fan. I know this committee is of this program, and I don't want, just because you were up first, which I think is what this had to do with, it's not reflective of the way that you all have really done a lot with not a whole lot in terms of funding from this committee and from the county. In fact, this committee has had to step up to provide you with some more funding in recent years to be able to keep up with the modest programs that you are putting on for farmers in need. So anyway, with that, happy to.
I feel like I'm watching grass grow here.
Those points.
Okay. This is not a cut. This is a recognition of reality that savings are available because there's no program happening here.
A reduction. Accept the reduction in expected spending. And
thank you for your comments. I share them. I share your view completely. I don't often enough take the time to speak to the value and the importance of the program before us. But
if I could just have
Mr. Duano, you're next.
If I could have 10 seconds, I won't use much at all. Okay. I was just going to note, we've restored this funding before. Obviously, I'm a big champion of it. It's important. I will be teaching my kids about the family farm and their heritage this summer, so that I'll do one of my story times about farming. You can come on, Jeremy, so we can keep the learning going in a low cost way. But it's a great program. You guys do a great job with very small staff, and to Mike and Jane and the whole team, I just want to thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, so we have a staff recommendation. I think there's no objection there. Okay, thank you, team. See ya. All right, next item.
The next is the Housing and Community Affairs budget, with the lead is Ms. McMillan.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not able to turn my video on, so, the host has asked me to.
Okay.
Okay. I have two items with you today. The first is Housing and Community Affairs, and Tim Getzinger and Pofen Salem are also on the call. There is one item here, $98,000 related to a currently vacant senior planning specialist. I would say that when you look at this reduction, this is just to the general fund portion of DHCA, so there's nothing with the Housing Initiative Fund, there's nothing in the grant fund, obviously, but it's just to the general fund portion. This position has become vacant. I think it's appropriate to lapse it. I think you want to keep the position, so I agree with lapsing it because the committee's working very hard to expand the number of MPDUs and other affordable units, and eventually DHCA is going to need to fill this to have the infrastructure they need to manage the program.
Okay. Good. Any comments, Andrew?
One, I did want to talk about the budget follow-up, but we can, if we were going to talk about that after, that's fine. Because I think that's important to talk about fees and how we keep up with the code enforcement and landlord-tenant and all the other needs that we have in the absence of fees, which I think was the right decision, but I think that's important. But you know, I'm interested. This is a big agency, and obviously there's huge needs here, and I understand that there's really not much in the way of cuts given the importance that this department has. I mean, I can kind of take that to heart to a certain extent. We're adding funding to a lot of these programs and COVID emergency expenses, but is there some big report that we're going to get of a reorganization or restructuring to move some of the functions within the department that the county executive has under his authority to change the way that funding happens within executive agencies and within line items? I mean, it seems to me this is one agency like the Health and Human Services that has dramatically changed in terms of what the needs are, what the moment is, and this doesn't reflect that. I mean, we haven't, and so, this might not be the right moment to understand what is going on within the agency to address that, but I would think that there would be significant changes and retooling and rethinking and moving folks around and, adjusting programs in order to accommodate the fact that we are in a major economic crisis and a public health emergency. And, if that is happening, I would love to hear about it. I think this committee should learn about it. I yet to hear what those might be. So I just wanted to raise that, because a 1.14% cut of a position that's already vacant to continue to lapse it and not much else just doesn't seem to meet the moment that we're in for a department that is so critical to doing so.
Good question. I see we have Mr. Getzinger. You know what you need to do right now, Tim. There you go.
I got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I could unmute myself. Thank you. And thank you for the questions. What I want to point out is, number one, no, I do not know of any reorganization efforts, which I think is a good thing. However, 80 to 90% of our general fund is actually covered by fees. Okay, so they're covered by landlord-tenant fees, and they're also covered by COC fees. And this actually pays for, again, 80 to 90% of the general fund. What is left over is actually just this regular general fund that is not covered by fees. It's covered by taxes or other general county revenues. And so when we take a look at the percent that we were reduced, although it shows 1.14% of the total general fund, which is $8.6 million, we bring in well over $8 million worth of fees. And so we're actually taking a 6% cut on those revenues that are not covered by the fees that we generate, which are the COC fees and the landlord tenant fees. So that is what I want to point out.
So what are you cutting? this is what's unclear to me. I mean, maybe this is connected to the follow-up conversation because that fascinates me too. But I don't see a scenario under which you're not collecting fees. It makes up a huge proportion of your budget. You're saying about half, and we don't have a plan before us of how we're responding and reacting to that. You know, where are the savings? What is being cut? What are the priority decisions being made? The county executive has the authority up to 10%. If it's beyond 10%, and it definitely sounds like it's going to be if we're not collecting fees for, half a year or longer, how's this all going to work? And at what point are you all going to come back to the council and to this committee and explain how it's going to work?
Certainly, I would expect that we would have a rigorous plan in place, and we can certainly explain that to you. However, we are working, we are teleworking, our landlord-tenant shop is working, as is our licensing and registration to collect data. We cannot charge fees. However, once the emergency is lifted, we would be able to charge fees, and it is our intention to charge fees for the full year. Code enforcement is working. They're not necessarily doing housing code inspections. They are able to do emergency inspections, and they were a part of a larger sweep effort in which they would visit businesses and make sure that they understood where we were in terms of the different restrictions and what they had to do. And it was more of a county executive group effort. But you're absolutely right. We are not at 100%. We will take a look at what we need to do. I would expect that there will be a large effort to get out and do all of the code inspections that we need to do. But everything else other than code enforcement has been moving just as planned. I think some of you may have been on some of the CCOC different Zoom meetings that we've had. We've had regular monthly meetings. We've held cases. We've done mediations, and we've done that for just about all of our programs. But I certainly understand your concerns, and we will certainly address them. PHED may be able to address some of those greater finance concerns that you are pointing out in terms of the revenues are not coming in yet, but the plan is in the interim.
Well, what I would say for Ms. Salem is, it sounds to me if you're not collecting half of your budget, and we don't know when you will be able to collect half of your budget, it would be helpful for this committee and the council to get a detailed analysis and understanding of when this department is going to run out of money to pay for personnel, to continue the inspections, to do the things that it needs to do, and what is the plan to do it. It doesn't have to be necessarily today, but I think, the public and this committee and the council deserve to understand how that's going to be handled before it happens. And it sounds like, that it must already be discussed, internally within the executive branch. It hasn't already been decided. And number two, I didn't quite follow the fact that you're taking 6%, but you're not taking 6%, but you're kind of taking 6%. I'm not sure what that meant. And if, again, I think we can approve the 1.14% for this one lapse position, but it would be helpful to get documentation as a follow-up to the committee of what that means. What does it mean that you're taking a 6% cut? From where, from what, from who, and when? I think that would be helpful.
Certainly. We have all that information prepared, and I think we'll be able to show it to you. It probably will be easier just to take a look at the financial report that we can provide. I think it would be a little bit more easy to explain. But again, there's three elements to our general fund. One is the landlord-tenant, the other is the COC, and the other is the unfee-generated general fund, which is not supported by any licensing fee or COC fee, and that is where we are taking our reduction. And if you had that number in front of you, you would see that we're actually taking 6% of that, of the pot in which fees are not collected for.
Your point is that the $98,531 is about a 6% cut of non-fee related budget.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, that clarifies that. I think the other point that I raised, again, it doesn't have to happen here. I don't want to take up too much more of the committee's time, which I already have. But I think it'd be helpful for the council and this committee to get a detailed understanding of how we're going to deal with the loss of revenue and where that money is going to come from, because ultimately either we're going to have to subsidize it or advance it through general fund, or there's reserves, or we're going to have to make cuts. I mean, but those are policy decisions that I think the council needs to participate.
I did just want to say, when we had the budget discussion, there's two different situations. So the common ownership community actually projected to have enough fund balance to be able to cover the costs this year. You would run your fund balance totally out, which is not a normal policy kind of account, but there was fund balance in the common ownership community program. Landlord-tenant was the more problematic one because there really wasn't but a month of fund balance to operate all of the critical things that go on that are funded through the landlord-tenant fees. So my understanding is that once fund balance runs out, the general fund will cover the costs of those things that are normally funded through these fees until such time as the governor allows the fee to go out, for us to issue the new licenses and collect the fee, at which time there would be, a transfer in of the revenues from the fees that would replenish the general fund.
All right, good line of questions. It's good to see you again, Mr. Getzinger. I know we see the director and Mr. Demaray whenever there's something fun to talk about, and then when we got to talk about cuts, they send Tim Getzinger. But we're glad to see you however we can. You do a fantastic job. You're one of the stars of that agency.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Very good. We have a staff recommendation, which I agree with. So without objection, we'll take the staff recommendation. And we're going to need to keep our eyes on this very closely. So thank you. All right, Tim. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Thank you all. Good to see everybody.
All right. We'll move on to the Office of Zoning and
Nope. HOC. The next one is Housing Opportunities Commission. I see Mr. Span and Ms. Kent, and of course PHED Salem from OMB. I'm not sure if Ms. Fowler's on the line. So for the okay, there she is. So for the Housing Opportunities Commission, you've already touched on this a little bit. There are several ways that the county gets funding to the Housing Opportunities Commission, as you know. This cut that we're talking about today is in a non-departmental account for support for resident services and certain other costs that the county assists HOC with. The executive did recommend a $409,000 cut, which was a 6% to equal to the full of that non-departmental account. After discussions, what I understand is that HOC is able to take about half of that amount. They can charge certain costs that they would normally have used the NDA funds for to some federal funds that are coming in, and that seems to be a savings to, our general fund certain, and I would recommend that you take about half that, except savings of $205,000. I did, in discussions with HOC, they said they would continue to look. We have no idea what other funds are going to come in over the course of the next months, that they may be able to charge additionally to things. But for now, I think the 205 is a cost saving certain that you should accept, and then just ask the commission to continue to do what they're doing, which is to look at other ways to, potentially reduce the burden on the general fund, but not accept that as a part of the savings plan right now. And then I did just want to note that when you come back in the fall for the CIP reductions, you will see that there's $125,000 savings that will come from the current revenue that goes to help maintain the deeply subsidized units at HOC. And HOC is in agreement with that reduction.
Mr. Span.
Good morning, Fed committee members. So with me are our CFO, Cornelia Kent, and our budget director, Terry Fowler. And just wanted to point out, we recognized, first of all, we recognize the tough spot that the county is in. And while we don't receive a large portion of our budget, we're prepared to do the 6% should we need to. Yes, it's problematic. It absolutely goes to level of service for some of the most vulnerable folks in our county.
How so? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, certainly. So we don't get any discretionary funding from the county. So just want to point that out. It's not this isn't something that supplements our direct operating budget, but rather it's very program specific. And so we work with the county to provide service in programmatic components, supporting folks. We get people housed, we keep them housed, and we're helping folks reach their fullest potential. And so in all three of those buckets, we've got certain county programs that we run on behalf of the county. And even when we're talking about CIP, same thing. And so, as you all know, we've talked about this more broadly, but this is a pretty difficult time as organizations like HOC are finding.
Your rent collections are not what necessarily you had expected.
Oh, well, I mean, we expected them to go down.
Okay, they are what you expected. That's the problem.
This time last year, no, we certainly would not have expected to take the hit that we're taking. But as I pointed out, we recognize that this is an untenable position for the county itself, and so we've got a smaller org than other departments, but we're certainly willing to step up and take our 6%.
Thank you. You may not have dialed in right at the beginning of the meeting, just because you're towards the middle of the packet, but I made some comments that the executive asked all departments and outside agencies for 6% cuts. The executive only accepted 6% cuts for HOC and park and planning. And basically, for other departments, for example, we went through ag. The only savings are programs that they can't actually perform because of schools are shut down. So it's not really a cut. It's just a recognition of savings that are going to be accrued no matter what. So I think it's I just want it to be really clear that we see that. We understand the executive has recommended real savings for park and planning and for HOC. I agree with the staff recommendation. I think we have no choice but to accept real savings. But if there are additional rounds, which there may well have to be, then it's not going to be, okay, next time you're going to take the full cut also. We're going to be mindful that you're taking you're taking a substantial cut now. So I just want that message to be heard at the executive branch side that, we got to be very careful here, and service reduction for vulnerable communities is something that we are extremely reluctant to do. And, the tension between the executive and HOC and park and planning, doesn't really justify undue cuts. And right now we have 6% cuts for those two agencies and less for everybody else. I think it's going to be more even in the end, because we're not done. We're going to have to come back probably this fall.
Right. And we believe, look, based on our own projections internally and what's happening with revenue for us, we recognize that there's a high likelihood that you all are going to come back. And so, point being,
so we know you've given at the office here. We're not going to forget that.
Well, and I'll say that should we need to give up the remaining 3% in the fall, then we're going to figure it out. I mean, we're committed at HOC to figuring it out, and so we'll do what we need to do.
Can I ask a question? maybe I'm misreading the packet. My understanding is that the staff recommendation is to claim this lapse, but only half of it because you're going to charge it to the CARES Act funding. So it will be, you will have the money. It's just going to come out of CARES Act. Am I misreading this?
Well, what that means is that no, you're not misreading it. But the CARES Act funding is so that we could actually support other programs. Like that CARES Act funding for us hits at the housing choice voucher program particularly. And so what it means is that we were given an additional amount of money from the federal government with the recognition that we would be able to support the most vulnerable communities at a greater capacity.
But I also think that the part of the issue is there isn't actually lapse. It's not the initial description was not correct in that it's not like there's vacant positions that are being lapsed. The idea was to offset the county funding with other funding.
That's right.
So so the initial description was not exactly.
That's what was throwing me off too, the lapse versus, I was like, okay, all right.
Right, so they have these positions, these folks need to do this work. HOC is able right now to take about half of what the executive's request was and charge that to another source. And, I know that they've, as you're hearing, they will continue to look for other opportunities, but right now I think, the certainty is about half of it, so about $205,000.
Got it. And then just a quick question. It was mentioned about rental payments. Where are you all as far as percentage, if you know, and if you don't know, you can get back to me. But
I mean, unfortunately, I know. I mean, we're seeing about 30% to 40% less. I mean, there is some silver lining in that, right? So for senior properties, where folks are having they have a fixed income, SSI, SSDI, that sort of thing.
That's true.
We're seeing less lapse.
Yeah.
But I mean, you all know the job loss numbers. Those jobs haven't. Yes, I know the federal government keeps talking about jobs are coming back, but listen, we're not seeing that. And so you lose about 30 to 40% of your monthly income. That has a real impact. So,
thank you.
Okay,
Support as well.
thank you. All right, so we have staff recommendation. Any comments? Or I think we've all made comments, so not objection. Ms. Sellen.
Yes, Councilmember Rimmer. I just wanted to make a point. I heard you mention about the 6% cut to HOC, and I understand the Linda's recommendation. What I'm going to say is, if we had to come back to offer another savings plan, I would definitely work closely with HOC to see, how can we navigate it through the process to make sure they don't have any significant impact towards that.
Yeah, appreciate that.
We're accepting the staff recommendation of the $205,000 cut because this is CARES Act and would only go through December 31, and so we'd basically be charging half year of that position to CARES Act, and then we're going to come back potentially in a future one. So we'd be accepting effectively a 3% cut. I just want to
We're not taking
up to December 31st and a TBD for later.
Thank you, Pofman. Thank you, Andrew. All right, so staff recommendation for revision to the executive's recommendation. Good. Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
All right, next.
Next, you have the Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearings. Mr. Zients is busy with a different meeting this morning, so he's asked that I cover this for him. And the introduction is fairly straightforward and relatively small. As you recall, the council approved the hiring of a new hearing examiner this past spring. And in the original budget, there had been budgeted a salary for this individual for an entire fiscal year, although that position won't start until September. And so the savings you're seeing here in the Office of Zoning and Administrative Hearings is for the salary lapse for that hearing examiner who will not be starting quite yet.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward.
Quick question here. Are
Yes.
there no administrative cost savings to the office? I mean, obviously, the functionality of everybody's offices have changed. I can't imagine that the hearing examiner wouldn't be an example of this. I mean, this is another example. This isn't really a cut. It took a little longer than expected to hire somebody, so we found, a modest amount of savings. I understand this is a very small office to begin with, so, get the paper clips and the printer cartridges don't add up to huge amounts, but I was just curious
So
if
what
there were
I do know,
administrative changes and whether there were cost savings related to this.
well, what I would say is from what I've heard is that the applications at planning are still relatively stable, the applications for projects. And I know that there are still review by the hearing examiner going on for potential projects related to conditional uses. I don't know if there's any zoning changes right now that they're reviewing. So I do know the office is still operating on a full schedule. They're still doing the work that the county has them.
What's the non-personnel related, like the non-compensation costs in the department?
That I don't know. What,
I'm just curious. Could you come back on this? The $658,601 department. Most of that, I'm sure, the average in state government is a hair over 80%. I would imagine it's even higher for a department like this because it's, largely, professional expertise to review this. But there's got to be some administrative costs. I'd just be curious what that looks like as we move to the future. But I'm supportive of the recommendation. I just wanted to ask.
yeah. Okay, we'll get that for you.
I will just say very briefly, Pam, you point out a good point that the committee should look at some point is the uneven nature of this recovery, or the pandemic itself in so many ways that, housing building nationwide is actually up. There are still things going on while many working class and frontline workers are struggling to pay rent, as the previous conversation just displayed. And I think we're going to see those kind of weird, the fact that those numbers, they're still getting applications and things are still moving forward. It's just something we need to keep an eye on as we go forward. So, but thank you for the point.
Right. I mean, if it wasn't for the continued functioning of some kind of construction market, there would be much more serious employment impacts.
Yeah, it's a critical point and one that we definitely need lots of conversation on. But it's the good news and the bad news, right? I mean, the good news is there are still things in the economy that are working. The bad news is it is not proportionate at all, and we have to figure out how to reconcile that and discuss it. I think we've done a pretty good job, frankly, with our recovery efforts, targeting particularly those folks who need it the most, but definitely more comprehensive conversation. And I think we've said it 1,000 times a day for the last 4 or 5 months. We're building the plane as we're flying it, and I think this is a good example that we don't. We're still figuring out what the impacts are as families are experiencing it, and it's brutal.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So staff recommendation looks fine. I think you will accept that without objection. We'll move to the next item, rec. Vivian.
Yep, just trying to start my video. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So we have with us today the Director of Recreation, Robin Riley, as well as our OMB analyst, Anita Arieti. I apologize if I did not pronounce that right, Anita. The executive is recommending a reduction for recreation of $1.8 million. It's $1,833,625. This is a 4.25 reduction to the department's operating budget, fiscal year 21 operating budget. The table in your packet shows a number of savings. A number of them are related to COVID and the department's best guess in terms of delaying opening of facilities and the cost savings because of that. So what I understand is that the department anticipates opening centers after Labor Day with adjusted programs and events. So 3 of the items, savings in utilities, savings in PLAR, and savings in community center operations are related to that. In addition, the department did not hold their annual Independence Day celebration, so that was also taken for savings. An additional item related to administrative savings relates to professional memberships and training and other staff programming that should not impact services to the public. The last item of note is a reduction to youth development. It's $660,000, and that one relates to delaying programming related to the 4 EBB sites that were added in fiscal year 20, as well as the 3 new Rec Extra sites. The department has explained that those sites did start in fiscal year 20, but that there were delays in related to hiring staff to continue those programs, as well as then a subsequent hiring freeze. And that would have, that impacts actually the ability to fully implement those programs. In addition, though, because schools really don't know what's going to happen in the fall yet and what's going to happen with childcare and other after-school activities, again, the department is taking this as a savings partly because, you know, we don't know exactly whether the program can be implemented. So at this time, council staff recommends taking the savings, but recommends that the committee monitor the need for youth development services, particularly for vulnerable children and youth. And if we find that in order to meet these needs outside of the department's approved budget, the committee and the council should come back and look at the funding adequacy for the department.
Can you expand on that a little bit more? Like, you mean in order to add new programs that we aren't presently providing because it's a different environment and we need to essentially build new programs that we don't yet have? And to do that, we would reallocate funding? Is it sort of basically what you're postulating is something we want to keep open as a possibility?
Sure. I mean, we heard from the department, I think a week ago, about their plans related to summer programming. And during COVID, it's a brave new world, right? We don't know exactly what schools are going to look like, whether, kids are going part days and what are they going to do the rest of the time there. So recreation could play a really important role in terms of providing additional services or structured safe places for children to be, et cetera. So we don't know what things are going to look like. I know recreation has been thinking about that.
Let me pause you there. That was
okay.
It was an important comment you just made. So, for example, we are looking at 2 days a week for elementary school students in the classroom, according to the draft MCPS plan, 3 days at home. Perhaps we have the ability to provide rec services for those children so that they have somewhere to go if their parents, don't have an option. That's basically an example of what you're talking about.
Sure, and again, like I said, recreation has been thinking about those things. Director Riley can probably speak to this better than I can. And also, I think that the interest is working with schools to figure out what they're going to be doing and what are the needs of families in the fall. But again, because we don't know exactly how to address the need at this point, it doesn't mean that there won't be a need, and there might be a need for additional funding to meet service needs.
Director Riley, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. I mean, I think Vivian characterized it well. It's uncertain, but we are now beginning the work of collaborating with public schools and other nonprofits to really think creatively about how our out-of-school time model changes as a result of COVID and where we can be the best support to the young people in our community. And Councilmember Reamer, you identified it very well, where we might be the safe space and provide the oversight for young people who are not in school and whose parents are both working and need someone to kind of make sure they're okay and doing whatever supports we can in the spaces that we have. So it's uncertain, but we're starting the conversations and starting to really build out some options so that we are prepared once the path gets a little more solid underneath of us with public schools.
Thank you so much. I mean, what's going through my head as you're describing that is that the school system, I think, would be challenged to allow you to use the space on the days when they didn't want the children there. Their whole point is that they need to, one group of students goes Monday, Tuesday, they clean everything on Wednesday, different group of students goes on Thursday and Friday.
Right.
So it's really probably not practical for them to say, and you can have half the building or, a lot of the building on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So
Yeah,
you'll have to be
absolutely.
very creative about what kind of space, you use. But at the same time, I think we would be very interested to know what you could do and very open to thinking outside the box and finding the resources, as Vivian has alluded to, repurposing resources. If you need to rent a storefront, maybe that's what we need to do. Let's meet the need and tell us how do you meet the need,
Yep.
and what changes we need in order to make that possible, rather than saying, well, we can't do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think our staff are so creative and they care so much and passionate about their work that I think, they're going to lay out a really good framework. And as you identified, it might be renting space. It might be even our own spaces. It might be a senior center. That might become an EBB elementary
Senior
Tuesday,
centers-
Thursday site,
Senior centers are not opening up anytime soon. What about parks? Their facility?
Absolutely. All those options are on the table for us, and we're starting to explore and build out options as we move forward.
And is parks at the table with you? Can you?
They are not yet. I mean, they were during the summer program, and we will certainly include them as well because of their park buildings and other places that they have that can provide access. Absolutely, we'll include them.
So, it sounds like we would benefit from a kind of concerted effort and a structure here, to talk about meeting the needs for out of school time in this COVID environment. I know we're going to be taking up youth sports next week. It's a strain of that, but Director Rowley, I think we ought to be thinking about some kind of a working group here. I know you're doing this work, but just
Right.
to indicate what strong support I know you'll find at the council for
Great.
pushing forward and clearing barriers and making something happen. Let's not be stuck in the mud. I know it's very difficult to get out of the mud, and we're all this COVID environment has put everybody in the mud because it's so much uncertainty, and so much it's just a lot of uncertainty. So, but we think we know what the school system is going to do, and so it's time to move as fast as we can to.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And
Mr. Girondo.
yeah, if I could just add, I think agree with everything that's been said, and Director Riley, thank you for all the work I know you're already doing and modifying with as far as meal delivery and assisting with that, and checking in on kids. I think there's I'm open. We should, to Councilman Reamer's point, we should have everything on the table as far as innovative strategies to do family support and to check into kids and to use buildings that aren't being used. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really think out of the box. And as he said, I think everyone will support that. I'm really concerned. We're all really concerned about our students and children that are most disconnected. And I know I was talking to the director of our collaboration council, and who I know you're working with, Elijah Wheeler, about, and I'm glad they're moving forward with the drop-in center for homeless youth, and that's moving. There's a lot of issues connected to this that are connected to you, and I know you're working on them all, but I do think if we could just regularly check in and share ideas, that would be good, because this is a serious issue, and the longer we go, the more of an issue it is, and the more disconnected and tough it is for families. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, speaking to Councilmember Jawando's earlier point about the economy, I think that perhaps even more disparate and more clear and more vexing and more challenging and carrying more long-term damage, frankly, is the discrepancies between families who don't have access to recreation programs and aren't able to send their children to school. What does that mean for parents who can't afford childcare, have to go to work to be able to keep food on the table? What does that mean to kids who don't have access to enriching programs? What are those kids going to be doing? Many of those alternative activities are bad or worse. Staying inside, cooped up, not being healthy, not having enriching activities to develop their brains and to handle their mental health and wellness needs. It's a real concern. I'm glad Councilor Jawando mentioned the Collaboration Council. We have two council members who are former chairs of that board, Councilmember Albernos and me, and have a strong affinity to that. And there isn't a single council member who hasn't been actively involved with programs that they provide. And our good friend Elijah Wheeler, who I'm glad is at the helm there now. But the challenges facing our at-risk children and youth. I'm going back and thinking through the various programs that Collaboration Council was handling when I was chair and when I served on that board for many years. And it was tough then in terms of making sure that we were reaching the kids who needed it and providing the support for some of the most challenging environments, for kids who face some of the most difficult circumstances. And now it is magnified 10, 100, 1,000-fold. And I really appreciate all of your work. And I know Councilmember Jawando has really led the effort early on in the crisis for the food insecurity issues and partnering with faith-based institutions in the rec department. And I have seen you, Miss Riley, with your sleeves rolled up and moving product and out in the front lines. And I really appreciate the work you're doing. The rec department has taken on a whole new role during this crisis. I mean, it's not the type of programming that we're traditionally used to. It's less fun, so to speak, but it's perhaps more important than ever. And I just really appreciate and wanted to echo comments made by colleagues that the recreation department, I don't think, is the right name for the department in normal times.
Yeah.
Based on the breadth of and importance that you play in so many families' lives, particularly children and adolescents and seniors who need it. And now it is definitely a misnomer for the role that you are playing. And I know all of us really do appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Our staff have been phenomenal. So thank you.
All right, so I would like to follow up on this idea of kind of a work group around youth out of school time and COVID. I think we've all been waiting to know more about what MCPS is going to do. So now that information is becoming clearer, why don't we just return to this? I think we can ask for. I think it would probably be a joint committee meeting with Ed, but kind of just an overall out of school time. Initiative here. So as soon as we're crystal clear on the environment, let's just all firing on all cylinders, be they in electric vehicles don't have cylinders. So whatever, charging on the full battery to implement programming. And that gets to just a question I had. So for example, the EBB budget, it's really personnel, I think. So if we're not hosting EBB, that money still is expended. So is that right? I mean, talk to us about that, for example. And does that mean? I mean, it means we have staff capacity to
Correct.
do other kinds of programming, right?
Correct. There is a chunk of operating as we pay contractors. And a lot of the teachers that we normally hire after school are in that operating budget as opposed to the seasonal. But it is heavy on seasonal and personnel, so we can certainly leverage a lot of that work to help us in this new world. We just need to set the framework and better understand and sort of lay out the scenarios and get planning on it. And that's what we're starting to work on now.
Okay. All right. So we got some follow-up here. Thank you, Vivian, for bringing that up for us. And think we're all in agreement on the staff recommendation. All right, accepted. Thank you, Director Riley. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And,
See you on Saturday.
all right. The next item is MNC-PPC.
Correct. So as was mentioned at the beginning of the session, the executive did recommend operating budget expenditures to be reduced by 6%, and MNC-PPC has come forward with a savings plan that does do that. Their budget is large, as you can see on page 5 of the staff report, but the reductions are large as well then, so almost $7.8 million in reduction. There are two primary components to the MNC-PPC budget: the administration fund, which is for the planning department and central administrative services, and then the park fund. Because the cuts are so large in amount, it makes sense to go through and identify what's being recommended as far as the planning budget, the CAS budget, and then the park fund. And so that's what this packet does. You'll see on page 6 of the staff report that we've itemized what the proposed reductions are for the planning department. The first one you'll see, which is slightly more than half of the funds that they are reducing, come from the deferring of hiring of anticipated vacancies and additional labs. So that is about $600,000 worth. The second biggest cut then, or the next group of them, involves a reduction to consultant assistants. And they've recently hired in this area for consultant analysis, and they have created a whole new division for communication. So while these changes do impact what they expected to be able to do in the next fiscal year with this funding, they still have some staff expertise and breadth to continue working in these areas. Planning is also recommended to reduce their placemaking activities, in the Design Excellence event could also be impacted. Again, these could potentially be large-scale gatherings, things that may not be practicable during the coming months, during the fiscal year. Like several other agencies, they have proposed reducing their spending on conferences, associated travel, and the employee recognition event. One part of that is also typically money spent on a very large gathering, and again, that may not be practicable. And you'll see that CAS has reduced funding for that as well, with the same recognition that that may not be something that would happen during the pandemic recovery. The remaining of the reductions to the planning budget are somewhat minor. There is money under information and technology related to computer support. And then they have savings that they've put forward for the Wheaton Headquarters project, updated numbers for that, and pre-funding some projects with end-of-year FY20 funds. And then just to note, too, within the administrative and planning budget, our Commissioner's Office will reduce their budget by $4,000. I don't know if you want to talk to Director Wright, ask any questions related to planning before we move on to CAS.
Morning, Director Wright. Anything you'd like to share with us?
I would just reiterate really what Chair Anderson said, which is, we have done our best to comply with the 6% savings plan. The elements that are included in our savings plan were thought through a great deal, and they are ones that are not easy to take, and that if we are at the point of another savings plan within the next, the next 6 months or so, the cuts will affect our ability to actually provide the products that the council has assigned us to provide. And it is a tough time. We want to do our part. But we also know that planning for the future during this tough time is incredibly important. We're very proud that we provide a lot of the data and information that is being used by other county agencies in creating programs and making decisions. You all just were briefed on a number of our different housing studies, and we really feel like that data and that information that we're providing doesn't only help park and planning. It really also helps the HCA, it helps HOC, and it helps the council in making policy decisions. So, we hope we will be able to keep providing you the products and the information that you need. I think that's it.
Thank you. I'm relieved that you're able to find savings while ensuring, at least for now and hopefully for the year, that the key priorities that we work really hard to fund in the budget cycle are going to be able to continue to move forward. So when I saw 6%, we got very concerned that we were going to be rolling back the new initiatives. And so thanks for finding ways to meet the need without having to do that. And, as we said earlier, we gotta make sure that MNC PPC isn't going to have a disproportionate share in the end. It has a disproportionate share now, but we're not done. So we'll just keep our eyes on this. All right, thank you. Let's move to parks. Thank you, Gwen. We'll see you.
Councilmember Reno, before we do that, I just want to mention the CAS budget that is also part of the administration fund. And so the reductions to CAS aren't small. There's still over $500,000 worth of reductions.
Oh. By the way, for my colleagues' benefit, when you take yourself off mute, I'm sort of using that as a signal that you want to talk. So we can do that. Right, go ahead.
So at the top of page 7 of the staff report, you'll see the reductions to the CAS budget, and they're primarily over many of the departments that are within the Central Administrative Services. A lot of it is deferred hiring and some other things, some savings they have with end of year FY20 funding. And again, I just wanted to mention that Montgomery County is coming forward with the savings plan. Prince George's County has not come forward with a savings plan yet. But anything that impacts the Central Administrative Services on the Montgomery County side also impacts Prince George's. So we're just hopeful that there's a dialogue going on between the two counties, that if, in fact, Prince George's comes forward with a savings plan in the future, in the coming months, they recognize the current 6% cut that CAS is experiencing for the benefit of the Montgomery County request to lower their budget. And they're able to find those cuts.
I might need you to restate that, but is it possible that the George's Council would say no, thank you, or can we?
From what I've heard to date, that there has been conversation going on with Prince George's County, and that they recognize and are supportive of this program so far.
Okay.
And that they recognize the value to making the reductions at this time, given the uncertainty of the future.
Got it. Okay. Thanks. Andrew.
Yeah, just quickly, this is one of the peculiar manifestations of the bizarre bi-county agency from a bygone era that we have inherited. Like many public policies, both good and bad, we are not acting, we are reacting to the past. But from a practical standpoint, we go through this dance every year, during the budget where we approve something, they approve something, the staff communicates, ultimately we come to an agreement at the elected official level and approve it. Sometimes there's one item that there's a disagreement on and we figure it out. Here, from a practical standpoint, these are approved on our end but don't happen until they get approved on the Prince George's end.
So it's a little different than it's a little different with a savings plan than the traditional budget process, and it can be less formal. So yes, we've been having conversations for the last week to 10 days on this once the planning board had approved their recommended reductions, and Chair Anderson can chime in. But once that happens, yes, they do reach out to, as a commission. So it is a bi-county commission. So you have Chair Anderson, the board chair for Montgomery County, and you have one for Prince George's County. There's communication, and they have talked about the results of the cuts to Central Administrative Services as it affects the commission in Montgomery County and in Prince George's County, and they are in agreement. It seems like this can be more informal, and I know that
this is going to happen. I mean, this is not normally when we go through this during the budget. It's kind of prospective, pending formal agreement. What you're saying now is this has already basically been agreed upon by the Prince George's Commission. I mean, by the Commission as a whole, including Prince George's. And so now they will ultimately have to act on their side to match what we've done.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right?
There's no further questions with the Central Administrative Services. We can move on to the Park Fund.
Let's do that.
Okay. And it begins on page 8 of your staff packet. You have that in front of you. You'll see there are numerous items listed to meet this almost $6 million cut for the park system. The largest savings come from reduced spending on office and maintenance supplies, small equipment, parts, and tools. And this reduction will defer maintenance and landscaping projects throughout the county. And there are more details on this on Circle 4 of your packet. Probably not 4. Sorry, I may have gotten that circle number wrong. But the next second largest savings would come from lapsed salaries. This is almost $1 million worth. There are currently 85 vacant positions in the park fund. And to meet the proposed lapse savings, Parks has identified 54 positions to hold vacant for the entire fiscal year.
Sorry.
One.
Say that again, please.
Parks has identified 54 positions that they will remain vacant for the remainder of the fiscal year. There's 31 additional currently vacant positions that they will simply defer hiring on for some time as yet to be determined.
So nearly over 80 positions that are being held. I just think what jumped in my mind was the executive branch's initiative around, doing more with less, and their ambitious goal of 100 positions consolidation across the entire county government of 10,000 employees. And here you have Parks has got over 80 positions they're holding off on for now, recognizing that's temporary versus permanent, but it speaks for itself. So please continue.
Okay. They will. They're proposing to hold 54 open for the rest of the fiscal year to really address these savings that are needed by the county, and then 31 of those they will defer for now. It's undetermined when they might fill them over the year. And then there is also some reduction to the seasonal employment. There are no questions. With respect to Park Police, there are currently 4 vacant positions that they intend to defer the hiring on for the remainder of the fiscal year. Council staff, Ms. Farag, reached out to Park Police and discussed this with the chief, and there was some information that while crimes have been down in the parks due to the COVID pandemic, at the same time, patrols in the parks have gone up. So you sort of have things coming from both different directions. You have less crime, so maybe less need, but at the same time you have more patrols. They are now starting to see, as more people are out and about and as we enter new phases of recovery, that crime has gone up slightly, so they may see increased patrols because, again, parks is a place where most people can still go or want to go, and we have more people out and about, so slightly increased in crime. So whether they can maintain those 4 vacant positions for the whole fiscal year, hopefully, but I think that's something that should be considered. I don't know if the committee has any questions.
Well, I honestly don't get a very clear understanding here. Crime is down, but it might go up. Patrols are up, but they might go down. I don't really see how that all fits together. But
I don't think they expect the patrols to go down. As we see more and more use of the parks, we're going to continue to have our park police needing to regularly patrol the parks.
Sure, but they're up.
When people were at home, now people are out more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd raise the broader point. I think this fits in. Yeah, I think rather than getting bogged down in the question of policing in the parks and patrolling of the parks, I think the broader issue here that we need to be sensitive to, and that we started to discuss earlier, is the fact that parks usage is way up. It's way up because people are leaning on parks more than ever because there are limited opportunities to safely.
So is it up?
Health and wellness, and so we need to be mindful of that as we move forward to be ready.
May I interrupt you if you don't mind? I mean, that's what I thought. I thought park usage was up, but Pam was saying that during COVID it is down. So
no, I said the crime was down. That doesn't necessarily mean
the use is up, but crime is not up.
Yeah, I actually would think it would be I think it makes sense to me. I think when there are actively used spaces,
Right.
they are less likely to have issues. Certain like property crimes, like vandalism and others, tend to be done, I would think, in places where there aren't a lot of people around to see it. I just, I think the broader issue here to me, because there's a whole separate issue that we could get into, which is probably a joint conversation with the Public Safety Committee, which Parks Police tends to be discussed as a joint committee issue. I think the broader issue here is an understanding and an appreciation for the fact that our parks and our trails usage has been way, way up during the COVID emergency. We've consistently seen data to support that, and as we talk about cuts here, and maybe among the only, if not the only, agency that has actually taken the full haircut that was requested by the county executive, we have to be mindful of the fact that, like some of the other departments within county government and agencies within county government, these are ones that people are leaning on now more than ever, and we're going to have to be ready and prepared to address that functional reality.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So, Director Riley, use of the park has been up, right? People are in the parks more. Crime has been down. We are reopening. That might result in use of the parks going down. It could result in, we don't know. But I guess I just want to say, I think we need to accept these savings, and we'll keep our eyes on other things. And I don't know that there's a clear signal for what we would need, based on any of these trends. But Director Riley.
Good morning. It's the other Director Riley here, representing the Parks Department. I just want to say how much I appreciate your opening remarks and those of Councilmember Friedson. We got a memo that said save 6%. We knew the potential revenue crisis that the county's facing. We didn't get a memo that said stop the cutting when it gets painful, so we didn't. About 1/3 of the $6 million we came up with are savings that are not that painful. Things like causes reduced expenditures from certain things like utilities and gasoline, and a delayed move into our Wheaton building. We were fortunate enough to have some savings on our debt service for our park bonds, and we were wise enough to save some money at the very end of last year in June and prepay some FY21 items. But the majority of it, 2/3 of it, is very painful, and it's very cross-cutting impacts to park programs, as indicated in the tables we sent. And I'm happy to speak to any of those particular impacts. As far as visitation, I think I've been arguing that our parks are essential for decades. The pandemic has shown that they're absolutely essential. We are counting visitation with a bunch of different technologies and general overall participation in the parks, even when all that was really open was the open spaces and the trails. As soon as the weather got nice, people got out and were out there in the parks doing a lot of things. Now in phase 2, we've gradually reopened other amenities. As you know, the playgrounds are open. A lot of our enterprise facilities are open, and visitation is now skyrocketing in the parks. So I know Pam was kind enough to go to 3 particular cuts, which were our hazardous tree program, our non-native invasive plant program, and our stormwater maintenance, and suggest that maybe you forgive a portion of those savings. I agree. Those are all important programs that I'd rather not cut, but I just want you to know, as I go through this very painful exercise and look at all the essential services the Parks Department provides, and get all these suggestions from my team about where to cut and where not to cut, I don't find painless or non-essential services. For example, If the idea is let's pick up the trash with less frequency, there's a potential public health issue. If people say, well, we'll mow the grass less and let the grass grow higher, there's another issue with ticks. So I do have some very painful cuts in here. There's supply reductions to our white-tailed deer program. So I just want to make the point that at 6%, there was no way I could look at public safety or a program like arboriculture and say I'm going to hold that harmless and still come up with 6%. So it was not across the board, but I had great difficulty finding park programs that I could hold at this level of cuts.
Understood. So Pam, talk to us about your recommendations for, there are certain priorities you recommend we do not accept savings.
Right. So you'll notice on the top of page 9 of the report, the third largest reduction as a group taken by parks was to contractual services. And these contractual services cover numerous things, but the top 3 things that were mentioned were the removal of hazardous trees. This would reduce that removal capability, leaving maybe up to 100 potentially very hazardous trees that are in our park systems that could potentially affect either personal property, park property, or a user in the park. The second was a bioretention service, that we have bioretention facilities. If we reduce the contractual services because these facilities and this need is there, we would, the Parks Department indicated they would move maintenance workers from other duties to work on the bioretention facility. So if they're removed from other duties and other maintenance in the park, it's up to 1,000 career service hours. That has an impact on the integrity of the park's ability to be maintained. And then third were the services for the non-native invasive plant species and nuisance wildlife trapping. And again, we've discussed before when we've talked about the park budget, the importance of the non-native invasive plant management. When you get behind on that you end up spending more in the future to try to get back on track to what you have neglected or not been able to do currently. So my recommendation was to accept a savings of $183,693, which is the amount you would save if you put the funding back in for the tree removal contractual services, the bioretention contractual services, and the non-native invasive plant species contractual services.
All right. Well, I think I would agree with your staff recommendation there. Comments from my colleagues? All right. Imagine does everyone agree with the staff recommendation? Okay, everyone agrees with staff recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. Question about the ball fields. What's the implication here?
I'll let Mr. Riley mention that. I don't know.
We do, I believe, in our supplies item have some ball field items for the park fields for fertilizer and other supplies. I will say that the ball field program is very large, as you know, for both the park and the NCPS field. This is a small incremental shaving that I can tell you will not have a major impact on our forward movement for improving the county's ball fields.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's keep going. JR?
We're still on track for White Oak. I know, and thank you for doing that and all the great work. And I saw you got some national recognition too, so good work. And I know this is hard for you, Director Riley, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Juando. The sprigging operation of the Bermuda grass out at White Oak, I think, is going to start next week. So if anybody is interested in coming out for a look, I'd be happy to meet you out there.
Sprigging? That's when you plant little sprigs of grass?
Bermuda grass is very interesting. You can, normal grass you seed or you sod. Bermuda grass, the most common way that you plant it is you take the sod, put it in a machine that chops it up into little bitty pieces, and that grass is so aggressive in its rooting and growth that every little tiny piece of the grass sprouts a new blade, and in 2 weeks you go from dirt to green.
In our yards, yeah. Interesting.
Count me in. Let me know.
Okay.
Okay, so that in general covers the park fund. Director Riley had already mentioned that the remainder of the items that would be cut or reduced to meet the savings plan are things like vehicle parts and fuel, and then again things related to the Wheaton headquarters update, funding, utilities, communication costs, and some things they were able to pre-fund or save with FY21 funds at the end of last year, fiscal year. I don't know if anybody has any other questions about the park fund or any other comments before we move on to the capital improvements program.
All right, keep going.
Okay. So the next thing, in addition to requesting the 6% operating budget cuts, the county executive requested that MNCPPC cut $628,000 from their FY21 through 26 capital improvements program. The Parks Department focused on reductions in GEO bond funded projects rather than current revenue projects for several reasons. One is the sizable reductions that they had already made to the smaller pool of current revenue projects leading up to the budget in May. On page 10 of the staff report, you will see the list of projects that the Parks Department has offered to meet that $628,000 reduction. One is a proposed $100,000 implementation delay to Ovid Hazen Well, so it's not a reduction in their overall funding, it's just a delay. And the rest, though, are expenditures that are being reduced for FY21 for several level of effort projects. These total $528,000. But as you can see, all of these level of effort projects did receive an increased funding in the May budget, and so therefore they still remain with a budget that's higher than the prior FY 19 through 24 CIP.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. These are unfortunate, fortunate reality here, but I think it's fine to take these personally. But you know, as I said before, you know, we're going to the well here, and we got a long ways to go ahead of us. So we'll keep this all in perspective.
Yeah, past good behavior needs to be included as we look forward.
That's good behavior.
Good behavior.
Right. Exactly.
6%, found 6%, did exactly what was asked, and that shouldn't be a penalty. That should be, you know, taken into consideration as we move forward.
Which isn't to say we have a magic wand that if, you know, we end up with a 20% cut across all county, you know, but if the next round is sort of incremental, 2, 3, 4%, you know, then hopefully we'll be able to hold off additional cuts for park planning. Okay.
So, yeah, if the committee is in agreement with this, then that would finish the rest of this packet and we'll be done.
Staff recommendation, I think we have it without objection. All right, thank you. Part of being on the county council is the routine application of savings plans. Perhaps one day that will change. Thank you, Pam. Appreciate everyone's participation. Get out there and enjoy our parks. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Del condado del gobierno de Montgomery, que son muchos, entonces no es solo residentes del condado.